Most people believe manipulators are impossible to defeat. They appear confident, persuasive, and always one step ahead in conversations. When they speak, their words sound convincing, their arguments feel sharp, and their confidence often makes others doubt themselves. Because of this, many people assume that manipulators win because they are smarter. But the truth is something most people never realize. Manipulators rarely succeed because of intelligence alone. They succeed because most people react emotionally without noticing what is actually happening. Manipulation survives on one simple thing: your reaction. When someone provokes you, pressures you, or pushes you into defending yourself immediately, they gain control of the interaction. The moment your emotions begin guiding your responses, the balance of power quietly shifts. Strategic thinkers understand this principle very clearly. Centuries ago, observers of human behavior noticed something interesting. The people who controlled outcomes were not always the loudest voices in the room. They were the individuals who understood how reactions shape conversations. The person who controls their reactions often controls the direction of the situation. And the moment you begin to understand this, something important changes. You stop trying to win arguments. You start understanding the psychology behind them. In this video, we will explore 6 powerful mental shifts that can make manipulation extremely difficult. These are not tricks or clever comebacks. They are deeper changes in the way your mind approaches conversations, pressure, and influence. Because once your mind changes, the entire game changes. Let's begin with the first shift. The first shift is slowing down your reactions. Manipulators depend on speed. They want responses quickly. They create pressure in conversations so that you feel forced to answer immediately. When someone criticizes you suddenly or challenges your decisions in front of others, the instinct is to react right away. Most people rush to defend themselves. They explain too much. They argue harder, but this is exactly the reaction manipulators expect. Strategic thinkers do something very different. They pause. That small pause may last only a few seconds, but psychologically, it changes everything. The pressure that was directed toward you suddenly moves back toward the other person. Silence creates uncertainty, and uncertainty interrupts manipulation. When you slow the rhythm of your response, your mind gains time to observe what is actually happening. The second shift is learning to watch behavior instead of words. Words are incredibly flexible. Anyone can sound confident. Anyone can promise loyalty, support, or honesty, but behavior tells a much clearer story. Manipulators often rely on impressive language. They speak in ways that sound logical and convincing. They describe intentions that appear positive and helpful, but if you watch carefully, their actions often follow a different pattern. Strategic thinkers pay attention to these patterns. Do someone's actions match their words? Do they follow through on promises when situations become difficult? Or do their choices change depending on who is watching? Patterns reveal the truth far more clearly than language ever will. When you train your mind to observe behavior instead of being impressed by words, manipulation becomes much easier to recognize. The third shift is controlling emotional triggers. Manipulators constantly search for emotional reactions. They test different approaches: criticism, sarcasm, guilt, pressure, or subtle insults. Their goal is simple. They want to discover which reaction they can use to influence you. The moment they see frustration, anger, or defensiveness, they learn exactly where your emotional trigger exists. And once they find it, they will use it again. But something powerful happens when those reactions disappear. When your face remains calm, when your voice stays steady, and when your responses remain measured, manipulators lose the information they depend on. Without emotional feedback, their strategy begins to weaken. Emotional discipline does not mean suppressing feelings. It means refusing to let those feelings control your visible reactions, and that control quietly shifts the psychological balance in your favor. The fourth shift is learning to use silence. Most people feel uncomfortable with silence in conversations. The moment a pause appears, they rush to fill it with explanations or extra details. But silence is not empty. Silence creates pressure. When you allow a quiet moment to exist after someone speaks, something interesting often happens. The other person begins to question their own statement. They may add more information. They may begin explaining themselves further. Sometimes they even reveal doubts or contradictions that were not visible before. Silence invites people to continue speaking, and the more someone talks, the more information they reveal. This is why experienced negotiators and observers rarely rush their responses. They allow silence to exist because silence encourages honesty without directly asking for it. The fifth shift is refusing unnecessary battles. Manipulators often create small conflicts to drain attention. They may challenge minor details, question your decisions repeatedly, or provoke emotional responses over issues that have little real importance. If you react to every small challenge, your mental energy disappears quickly. Strategic thinkers protect their attention carefully. Before responding to a conflict, they ask a simple question: does this situation actually deserve my energy? If the answer is no, they step away. This restraint can feel unusual to people who expect immediate responses, but it creates an important advantage. Your attention becomes selective, and when your attention becomes selective, your words gain more weight. The final shift is becoming difficult to predict. Manipulators often study patterns in behavior. They watch how people usually react to criticism, pressure, or emotional triggers. Once they recognize a pattern, they begin predicting responses. Predictable reactions make manipulation easier. But strategic thinkers avoid becoming mechanically predictable. They remain calm and consistent in their values, but their responses remain flexible. Sometimes they respond quickly. Other times they pause and observe longer. Occasionally, they redirect conversations in unexpected ways. This unpredictability creates psychological uncertainty. When someone cannot easily predict how you will react, their confidence begins to weaken. Their strategy becomes less reliable because the pattern they expected no longer exists. And when someone loses the ability to predict your reactions, manipulating you becomes far more difficult. At this point, something important begins to change. Most people believe defeating manipulation requires intelligence, clever arguments, or perfect responses. But the real advantage comes from mental discipline. When you apply these principles, your behavior slowly transforms. You react less quickly, you observe more carefully, you speak with more intention. People begin to notice something different about the way you interact. They cannot easily provoke you. They cannot easily pressure you into emotional reactions. And when manipulation stops producing results, manipulators usually lose interest, because manipulation only works when someone is willing to react. Centuries ago, thinkers who studied power and human behavior understood this clearly. The strongest individuals were not always the ones who spoke the most. They were the ones who saw the structure of the situation more clearly than everyone else. When your awareness expands beyond the surface of conversations, your decisions become calmer and more deliberate. And once you stop reacting like everyone else, manipulation quietly loses its power. If this video changed the way you see conversations and influence, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who values strategic thinking. Because understanding human psychology is not about controlling others. It is about understanding the invisible dynamics that shape every interaction. And once you see those dynamics clearly, you begin playing the game very differently.